Today, we get to talk about everybody's favorite position in football from sea to shining sea, traditionally speaking, which is quarterback.
You are Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma State Cowboys, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Howdy, y'all, and hello, all. Welcome back to Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily stop for all things cowboy and cowgirl related. My name is Cody Stovall. I want to thank you kindly for stopping by to make this your first listen here on Locked On Oklahoma State. You can find us on all of your podcasting platforms, visually as well on YouTube, and you can find me personally at All Day O State. All right, so recently, I saw an article put out by our main man, Barry Tramel, with the Daily Oklahoman. And he was discussing the top quarterbacks in the Big 12 this season. Now, before I even opened the article, I knew that we were going to be underrated. It's inevitable. I get it. People are enamored with the idea that Spencer Sanders leaving Stillwater, Oklahoma meant the death of Oklahoma State. Matter of fact, I've seen some stuff on social media where a large conglomerate of people from multiple fan bases are picking Oklahoma State and TCU as two hot topic teams that are going to faceplant this coming season. The TCU thing, I don't get that either, because they brought in a lot of 4 or 5-star, big-time, blue blood, blue chip transfers in this offseason. So, yes, they lose Max Duggan, but they brought in a lot of weapons from places you all know and love, like Bama, Florida, etc., right? So I knew we were going to be very, very undervalued, underappreciated, but I didn't think that this disrespect would be this bad. We know this season's amount of disrespect towards Oklahoma State. It's frustrating, but also very, very enticing. From a financial perspective, this is the year to make the dollar bills, just like we talked about yesterday. There's not going to be a lot of times ever in your life that Oklahoma State football is projected to get 10th, 11th, 12th place. It's just not going to happen very often. You should see, I don't want to say will, right? But you should see Oklahoma State in the top 3 every single stinking year and almost every single stinking sport in the Big 12. It's just point blank, period. You can't tell me that we don't have the stars coming in for basketball to make something happen on both sides. Matter of fact, I'm sure you guys have seen, but OSU's women's basketball coach, J.C. Hoyt, has been absolutely on fire. Everybody was very excited when head coach Mike Boynton was able to bring in Musa Cisse and Bryce Thompson. But this is almost even more so with what J.C. Hoyt's being able to do with the women's side of things. But since how we're sponsored by FanDuel today, and everybody out there loves FanDuel today, it is your opportunity to potentially cash in on all of the odds and all of the massive amount of disrespect that Oklahoma State's getting this season. And I understand that some of it is warranted, right? We did have some issues last year. We've covered that 1,000 times. Gundy seems to be fixing them. This seems to be a little bit of a newer Casey Dunn. And the defense loves Coach Brian Nardo. The install has gone super, super well. Moving to a 3 technique has gone super, super well. But the quarterback position has been a question, right? What we just covered a few days ago, the running back position, it's not a concern. And some of the guys that we have pegged to potentially come in are pretty big time. We don't need a lot at running back, but there's a couple guys like we just talked about in a couple shows ago that could be massive for us to get for the future stability of that position. But quarterback is what everybody talks about, right? And no matter how often I talk to people about this 3-4-headed monster we have at running back, and the depth that we have on the offensive line should be able to allow us to run for over 4.5, 4.6 yards a carry on a day-to-day basis. That by itself, eating up the clock, envision a Colin Klein, not offense coordinator, but a Colin Klein quarterback-led K-State system when they had Dickey. I think that's kind of what we're looking at here. But no matter how often I present this to people, we're not going to need to have the next coming of Tom Brady, a quarterback, because the simplicity this season, it's nice. It's really nice. But you're still seeing a lot of hate when it comes to the quarterback position because it hasn't been settled yet. And that is true. It's not coach speak. It has not been settled yet. Every time Alan Bowman looks like he's going to clearly separate himself, he starts throwing a bunch of picks. So it is still a battle legitimately going on. You think you kind of want to lean the direction of Alan Bowman. That's clearly the direction that the staff would like to go from a security standpoint, right? From a knowledge standpoint, from a veteran-led style of team standpoint. This is their cup of taters. That's why they went out and got the dude. But it's not settled. So where do we stack up on the list of the best quarterbacks coming back to the Big 12? Not necessarily like the high-flying best guy per se, but depth on the depth chart does seem to have some semblance of credence here in Barry Tramel's article. I'll have to read it on my phone, so I'll be looking sideways and whatnot. I tried to get it on my computer, but it wouldn't let me get through the paywall. And I'm not paying for the Daily Oklahoman. I'm not paying for the Tulsa World. There's a lot of things I'm just not paying for anymore because it's completely unnecessary. That's beside the point. All right, let's get into this. But real quick, you guys know that I would be 100% remiss if I didn't jump in here right now and talk about FanDuel, because we are talking about money, right? We're talking about the opportunity for us as Oklahoma State fans to make some money, even if you're not an O State fan. If you're simply just a Big 12 fan and you've got $10 to burn, bet the over on O State. Anyways, you need to make a fast break for it right now and get yourself hooked up with FanDuel, especially with the NBA playoffs and everything. Right now, our new customers will get the no-sweat first bet. It's up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet does not win. There's literally no better place to bet for darn near anything, especially the playoff action, because we are America's #1 sports book. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get your hands on this no-sweat first bet. Again, up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet does not win. Again, that is FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NBA. All right, so we know what we have, but we don't know precisely how it's going to shake out. Again, obviously, for us being all creatures of comfort, it would be nice if Alan Bowman would secure the job and separate himself. It would. It just would, because it gives everybody else more time to get prepared. We know that right now Garrett Rangel could jump in and lead us just fine. Well, maybe y'all don't know, but I'm trying to convey that I know that we're just fine at quarterback. We're not going to need, again, the Tom Brady thing. And there's times that Alan Bowman does throw Tom Brady-esque passes. It happens. It's 100% factual and accurate. And at 6'4", 210 pounds, again, you want him to be the guy. We fancy ourselves off of the Mason Rudolph type of system, right? And people tend to forget the Big 12 used to be a factory for quarterbacks. Even if you date back to, Sam Bradford, recently Sam Ehlinger obviously was in the mix. But then you got to take into consideration you have people like Zach Robinson from Oklahoma State University. And then later on down the line, speaking of our main man, Mason Rudolph, who's getting screwed there in Pittsburgh, they need to just release him so he can do some. Anyways, that Baker Mayfield was part of that class a little while after. Kyler Murray was part of something. Geno Smith was part of some classes. The Big 12 used to produce quarterbacks on a regular basis. It has slowed down in the last couple of years. But does that mean this year is up for grabs, or does it mean that Oklahoma State University legitimately should be pegged as, well, I'm not even going to tell you. We're going to go through the list. Okay. So let's just jump in here. KU, Kansas University in football. is number one in the quarterback room. Everybody knows that Jalen Daniels is a star. I think it is fair to say that Jason Bean's probably the best backup in the Big 12, at least pretty daggone close to it. So they know they can go a multitude of ways with different quarterbacks and still be productive. So I get it. It is weird seeing Kansas as the number one rated quarterback room in the Big 12, but they're not wrong. Number two is OU. Don't know how I feel about this. Dylan Gabriel, he's all right. He could be really good. I think a lot of people expected him to launch OU's offense last season, especially with the Jeff Levy system that he's very, very comfortable with and he's very, very familiar with. But it is what it is. Didn't see it happen. Okay, fine. We move on. And now, so they've had Nick Evers transfer out. He's gone. And a lot of people were very, very high on him. Now they have the big-time, heralded, 5-star Jackson Arnold coming in. And what you're hearing is he's securely taken that number 2 job, and he's been good enough already to at least make Dylan Gabriel be honest in his evaluation of what he needs to bring to practice every day. So it does appear that Jackson Arnold is pushing Dylan Gabriel to be better. Dylan Gabriel does understand the system very well, just needs to get the nuanced timing with his wide receivers and all that done. We'll see how that goes. I do think that OU gets voted number 2 here, primarily because of helmet sticker and the fact that Jackson Arnold is so highly rated. He hasn't done anything. He hasn't shown anybody he could do anything yet. So this might be a little much, but we've seen what Dylan Gabriel can do when he is good, so I guess I'll give him that. All right, number 3 on the list for Barry Tramel and the Daily Oklahoman is Brigham Young University. Currently, they have Keaton Slovis. Keaton Slovis went from USC to Pitt, and from Pitt now to BYU. It is kind of odd that he's, kind of jumped all over the place, which makes me think that 3 is too high. 3 is just too high. But I understand if we're talking about depth too, their backup, Jake Ritzlaff, is obviously a very unproven individual, as is sophomore Cade Finnegan. So from a depth perspective, I guess it kind of makes sense. I would swap these two. I'd put K-State at 3 because they do have Will Howard, the same Will Howard that they wanted run out of town, and they wanted him completely off the team. They didn't even think that he had any business being on the field. Actually, I have an affinity a little bit for Will Howard because, to be honest with you, the guy who had the most impressive spring was Gundy, and he gets hated on so much. People say over and over again that if Gundy's in the game whatsoever, we have zero chance. I think that is preposterous. He was put in terrible, terrible spots, and since he's returned from shoulder surgery, he's actually thrown the most touchdowns in scrimmages. So Gundy and Will Howard are somewhat comparable just in the fact that nobody wants them on the roster. Everybody thinks that they shouldn't be here. They're not good enough. They should transfer. They should leave. They should quit. Well, luckily, Will Howard didn't listen to everybody because we saw what he did last year. And yes, he was able to take the job from Adrian Martinez and then run with it. But again, I understand depth is part of the equation, and the backup right now currently is Jake Rubley. Jake Rubley has played some, but I do know the fan base isn't super high on him. But again, the fan base wasn't super high on Will Howard at K-State. You go ask people in Manhattan, and they'll straight up tell you they didn't want him on the team. They thought he had no business being there. They thought he was a waste of a spot, and they wanted him gone. This is the same sentiment, unfortunately, we get from a decent amount of Oklahoma State fans when it comes to Gundy. So maybe that's why I swapped those two. Maybe I'm wrong. Who knows? And then we'll jump into the number 5, Central Florida. I understand John Rice Plumlee did some cool stuff at Ole Miss, very inconsistent. I understand that John Rice Plumlee did some cool stuff last season at UCF. But again, inconsistency is a little bit of an issue. Yards and everything, he did pretty good. His backup, Timmy McClain, was a South Florida transfer who played a lot as a true freshman. So, maybe that's why they're as high on this list. And if that's the case, I think I can buy that because of the production that he was able to have. It is kind of funny seeing somebody go from South Florida to Central Florida. It's somewhat reminiscent of people leaving Stillwater to go to Norman or vice versa, which is ridiculous. I hate it. I can't stand it, but it is what it is. Number 6 on the list is Texas. This is a little bit surprising because Quinn Ewers is still rated as a high prospect, right? The window for success seems to be closing a little bit because they like what they have out of Malik Murphy. So from what I've seen from Malik Murphy and Quinn Ewers, to be frank, they shouldn't be 6 on this list. There's a lot of things that Texas gets that they do not deserve, especially when it comes to accolades. But this isn't one of them. And I think Texas is probably too far down on this list because Malik Murphy could probably play a different receiver, Division I right now, right? He legitimately could. He's that athletic. So you could probably throw him on the field and he would be fine. And then, of course, you'll also have Arch Manning. I know that there's kind of not a common consensus on him. Some people say he's overrated because of his name. Some people say he's underrated. He just didn't get the level of competition some guys do, yada, yada, yada. Who knows? Don't care. Let's move on. Number 7, Baylor. Baylor's an interesting case study, right? We talked about this in the Twitter space the other day. It's very interesting that Dave Aranda decided to go ahead and let Jerry Bohannon transfer last year to South Florida so he could get some playing time. That means they leaned completely on Blake Shapen being the guy, and it was an honorable thing to do. I remember when it first happened, I was like, that is a brilliant move by Dave Aranda. This is probably going to help him get more recruits because if he's this open, honest, and transparent with people, parents are going to like that, right? Recruits are probably going to like that. But then it backfired. So as a case study, as a coach from anywhere else, unfortunately, you can't tip your hand. As much as you don't want to see a guy get stuck on the bench all year, you also don't want to see your team get stuck in a position that if number 1 goes down, then you're relying on somebody who's not ready whatsoever. So it kind of, again, it's unfortunate, but you almost kind of got to bamboozle your top 2 quarterbacks to make sure one of them don't leave. So admirable, honorable, yes. A problem that bit you in the butt, also yes. So I do think that it'll be something that people learn from. And then their backup, Sawyer Robertson, Mississippi State transfer. They seem to like him quite a bit. And then they have a junior, RJ Martinez, Northern Arizona transfer. They're competing for that number 2 spot. And it's a pretty heated battle from what I've been able to find. Number 8, TCU. We just talked about Max Duggan coming in last year and taking the conference by storm, really taking the country by storm, because at one point in time, he was legitimately on the Heisman contender type of list, as he should have been. But it appears as though redshirt junior Chandler Morris is going to take over. Chandler Morris is a transfer from OU. He transferred right after Tanner Mordecai transferred from OU as well. So OU had some pretty good backup quarterbacks that transferred out, and now we're finally get to see what Chandler Morris can do at TCU. The reason that, again, I think this is probably too far down the list because, yes, Max Duggan had a really good year, but people also tend to forget that he started the year as backup. Because this guy, Chandler Morris, beat him out fair and square. It was his team moving forward. He got injured. By the time he got healthy, Max Duggan was cruising, and they were like, oh, well, kind of don't need this. So Chandler Morris, everybody on that staff had already had conversations last year about him being better and more ready than Max Duggan. So do we think he's going to regress to the point that he's worse than Max Duggan? I think that would be hard to fathom, but I guess it is possible. But given the number that the Daily Oklahoman has here, it's interesting. Another thing that doesn't make any sense to me for having TCU down this low, they also got the Oregon State dude, Chance Nolan. He was somebody that I was hoping we would get. To be 100% honest with you, I was higher on Nolan than I was on Alan Bowman originally. I also didn't know Alan Bowman was much of an option. So, I mean, there's that too. But yeah, it just it's kind of odd to me. And then number 9, Texas Tech. This is another kind of confusing one to me. Tyler Shuck proved what he could do to some degree at Oregon, came to Texas Tech. He's been dealing with nothing but injuries. But their backup, I am sold on. I think Baron Morton is probably the best up-and-coming quarterback in the Big 12. And that includes all of our guys. Like, I'm not going to sit here and blow smoke up everybody's wazoo. I think that dude is so flipping good. Baron Morton is a dude to me. And they also got, obviously Tyler Shuck. So I don't think they should be this far down this list. And then we'll go to number 10, Iowa State. This is where the disrespect starts coming in. You're trying to tell us that Hunter Deckers and Rocco Beck are better than Alan Bowman, are better than Garrett Rangel, are better than Gunnar Gundy? No, I don't think so. Not at all. Hunter Deckers is not better than Gunner Gundy. You can write that down. You can take it to the bank because it's facts. It's just whatever. All right. Number 11, he has Cincinnati. Everybody knows recently Ben Bryant transferred out of UC. I know a lot of Cincinnati fans are not very excited about that. A lot of them wanted to stay. But what it meant is clearly Emory Jones, who went from Florida to Arizona State, obviously now to Cincinnati, he won the job fair and square, took it away from Bryant. So it is what it is. But I also know that they're very, very high on Evan Prater. And he's been a backup for a little bit of time now at Cincinnati. So he knows the system, knows what to do, knows how to do it, has the athleticism. They're very excited about him coming up. But clearly, they needed a little bit of a stopgap, and Emory Jones is going to be that for them. All right, number 12, Houston. They do have Donovan Smith, who transferred in from Texas Tech. I thought he would be the shoe-in, day one starter. But it appears as Lucas Cody, who transferred from Arkansas in 2021, is pushing Donovan Smith, and they're very, very even. So a comparable situation to what we have in Stillwater, Oklahoma, as far as there is no separation just quite yet in Lubbock when it comes to the quarterback play situation. I'm not Lubbock, sorry, Houston, when it comes to the QB play. We'll see. I'm a big believer, right? I think that Donovan Smith is a very, very, very good dude who will do a lot in Houston. And even if he doesn't win the starting job, that just tells me that this other dude that came in from Arkansas is that good, right? So if Lucas Coley is as good as it appears, I think Tech's going to have problems this year with Houston. Just like I think that OU is going to have some problems this year with Tulsa. And I'm not just saying that because half of Tulsa's rosters is former Oklahoma State guys. Not literally, but they do have a lot of former Cowboys. All right. So then after Houston, then we go to your own Cowboys, Oklahoma State University at number 13. There are 14 teams in this ever-loving conference. And the expert punditry has us as second to last. The expert punditry has us at 11th place. The expert punditry has us at 6.5 wins. The disrespect is real. And I, for one, hope that the players use this as bulletin board material. Yes, that stuff does exist. Yes, it is very, very real. And this should be up there for it. I think our wide receiver group is good enough to bail our quarterbacks out occasionally. So when we do get in a position where we need to throw the ball, it's not going to be a glaring problem as long as we can mitigate risk as much as possible. Right now, the best guy at mitigation of risks is Garrett Rangel. But the guy with the highest quote-unquote upside might still be Alan Bowman. I mean, I could see that. I can see that argument because he does make some NFL-level throws that blow your mind. He does, but then he throws some other balls that make you wonder how he made it to where he is now. So that's a little bit of a breakdown as far as quarterbacks. Oh, wait, hold on. Who was number? I got to talk about the last one. It wouldn't be fair of me not to. Oh, where'd it go? Oh, West Virginia. So Garrett Green is going to be the guy. Took over for JT Daniels last season down the stretch. We've seen Garrett Green come in as an athlete, a mobile guy for a couple different years now. I know that they're very, very, very high on four-star redshirt freshman Nico Marchiol. And if you watch the spring game, it was pretty even. I think I understand why they give it to Garrett Green from watching their spring game, but I also am very well aware that the fan base has been screaming, kicking, and crying for Nico Marchiol to get more time. So that's a balancing act that they're going to have to figure out. And before we skedaddle on out of here, guys, okay, so that's the quarterbacks we have. That's the quarterbacks listed in the Big 12. That's our quarterback type of situation. But real quick, I want to talk about a couple quarterbacks on the rise that we have our eyes on. the biggest surprise, 100%, is the fact that Isaac Wilson is not only interested in Oklahoma State, but very interested in Oklahoma State. That to me is amazing. Watching his brother, Zach Wilson, do his thing with the Jets and what he's able to do at BYU, it makes you pretty pumped up. And if you watch the film, I see the similarities. I understand why he's a 4-star. I understand why he's ranked the number 21 overall quarterback in America. I get all that. I'm surprised that we have a shot here. But again, evidently, Coach Tim Rattay, who I have issues with at times, right? Development of quarterbacks has been horrendous, but he's got a really good connection with Isaac Wilson. And if we can get Isaac Wilson to Stillwater, Oklahoma, color me happy. Now, the guy who I wanted a little bit more than Isaac Wilson was because I didn't think Isaac Wilson was going to be a legitimate factor in this, but he is. So I overlooked him immediately just because of his name and his status. I thought that he would like the Hollywood lights and everything and not be a big fan of Stillwater, but he does like Stillwater. And he could definitely see it as his home. So to me, that's the guy. Will Hammond going to Texas Tech, good for them. He was all right. Losing Haas Haney to TCU, that hurt. That hurt my heart a lot. That was the one I had circled. That's the guy that I wanted was Haas Haney out of Aledo, Texas. But he's going to TCU. It appears he's at least committed to TCU. I know it's early on, and commitments pretty much don't mean a whole lot anymore, especially this early on, especially with NIL being in play, which is why I thought maybe Isaac Wilson was not in the realm of possibility for us, because we do have a very nice NIL collective, and our NIL collective will always, always, always be top 3, top 4 in the Big 12. So we could participate, and we could get pretty close, but he's Isaac flipping Wilson. So from a marketing standpoint, he's going to get more dollars than most everybody else on this list. And I didn't think financially we would be in the ballpark, but it appears as though that Isaac's not just in it for the financial side of things. Financially, he's okay. He wants a good fit, and O State seems to be a really good fit. So that's my bucket list. I would like for Haas Haney to decide he doesn't want to go to TCU. That would be awesome. But Isaac Wilson would be a very, 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 very good prize to go with it. I mean, he's higher rated. He's a little bit more athletic. But, guys, I'm telling you, Haas Haney has a flipping fracking cannon. He has very quick feet, very fluid in and out of breaks. He can throw on the run. Kyler Murray, Baker Mayfield style. Like, he doesn't have any issues throwing across his body, which is usually a massive no-no. But when you have the arm strength that he does, he hums it. That ball comes in with a purpose when he throws it. So congrats to TCU on getting Haas Haney. Hopefully TCU screws it up so we can get Haas Haney if we don't get Isaac Wilson. So that's where we're at. A little quarterback check-in. It seems to be everybody's favorite position. So there we go. That's all we got for this one. We've got a lot more coming, and I've got some guest appearances coming. Mark Rogers' show. I had an amazing time on his show, the voice of college football, and he's invited me back, so I'll be back on his show later on this week to discuss all things Oklahoma State, the spring, the fall, recruiting, transfers, the whole 9 yards. And I've also got some more people both coming on my program and other programs I'm going to be featured on as well. So I will keep everybody updated. If you want to stay up to speed, make sure you go to my Twitter @AllDayOState. Otherwise, that's all I got for this one. Until next time, as always, God bless you. Go Pokes. I'll see you around the bend here. All right, y'all. Later.